to you, you are making an extraordinary claim when you hold to the not God world. Both the God world and the not God world are extraordinary claims according to your view. But you see, this is clicheism. Notice he went, oh, God is, I don't believe in God the same way I don't believe in somebody who claims there's a teapot orbiting. I mean, but this is a stupid cliche, because a teapot doesn't represent what is ultimate and the source and basis of why anything exists. It's a complete category error. And then he moves from one cliche, he goes from the Bertrand Russell cliche about a teapot orbiting Jupiter to, Carl Saganism, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, it turns out that his extraordinary cliche, all right, wasn't backed up by extraordinary evidence. So he doesn't follow his own maxim. He doesn't follow his own criterion of belief. Surprise, surprise, an atheist doesn't follow his own criterion of belief. Surprise, surprise, Sergeant Carter. Okay, Ed, put your hand down, or I'm going to remove you from the room. Come on up, Y. Okay, Petrie, since you're not speaking, I'm moving you back to the audience. Go ahead, Y.
Hello, thanks for having me. So could you explain to me why the lack of God is an extraordinary claim?
They're okay. Well, first of all, you need to understand that when we invoke God, we're talking about the Creator. We're talking about a supreme being, that which is ultimate, the source of everything that has come into existence, and that it is a mind. So, do you understand the definition of God that we're working with?
Yes, I get that, but could
Okay,
you
so
answer my
God
questions?
under the yeah, I will in a second. Right? I just want to make sure that we're clear on definitions here. So down the road, you or anyone else won't pull the definition game. So when we talk about God, we are definitionally referring to the Creator. The Creator, by definition, will be that which is ultimate, right? That which everything derives and depends upon, that is not itself, right? So when we talk about the Creator, or that which is ultimate and is a mind, God, we're talking about, in philosophical terms, what is a concrete universal. Well, what do I mean by a concrete universal? Well, it's a universal that is concrete, meaning that it's real. It's not a mental abstraction, right? So, for example, if we have sets of things, in certain senses, when we group things, these are mental abstractions, because the grouping is not concrete; it's abstract. So God is a concrete universal, right? So God, the God world, is an invocation of universality. We have God who's eternal, self-contained, ultimate, the creator, and everything else derives and depends upon him, like the spokes in a wheel. Everything would derive and depend upon God. So that's the God world. Now, there's only one other worldview. That is the not God world. Okay? Now, the not God world is the negation of the God world, but it too is a declaration of universality, in that all facts that are not reckoned to be God universally do not derive and depend upon God. So do we understand now that the God and the not God world are both universals?
So, yes, is that a problem?
No, it's not a problem, but most people that come to the table to discuss it, especially unbelievers, are not accustomed to what their own mental states are, or belief states. So that when you do not believe in God, it's not that you're in a mere state of incredulity. You will be believing in the negation. Okay?
I would say that might come down to a problem of certain definitions, if I may, like such as I hold the position that as far as atheism with me is the concept of negating the theism, which is theism is the concept that God has spoken to people and given
No,
them
sir.
divine
No.
right.
Theism.
Why
No,
why
no,
can't I
no.
finish,
Stop.
buddy? I'm
No, no.
not like
I want to
dude, I
correct you.
let you.
Theism does not necessarily entail God being revelational. Theism is that
What's
there
between
is at least.
theism and deism,
No,
Darth?
sir. Listen to me
The,
carefully. Are you an atheist?
yes.
Okay. Now, Theism is the position that there is at least one God, and usually that's referring to is a creator God. Okay? Now,
Is there a
whether or
difference
not,
between theism and deism, Darth?
yes,
Conversationally, yes or
yeah,
no?
yes,
Philosophically, yes or no?
yes,
What is
yes,
that difference? Divine
I,
right, correct?
no, theism, depending on the context within that we're using, if we're being very specific, then theism can be strictly differentiated from deism. But in common parlance, if we're not making a strict differentiation, we're not talking about whether there is revelation or not. Okay.
I
Now,
tried to
what
make that difference
what
in
what we
the
are?
convers.
Okay,
I was
listen to
trying
me
to give my
carefully.
position and you
Listen, if
cut
you're
me
gonna
off.
bicker with me, I'm gonna kick you off the stage.
I'm not trying
Okay.
to bicker with you.
Yeah, you most certainly are. I've been doing this for 10, 12 years. I know it when I see it. Okay. Now, I want to know from you. Okay. Very simple question. How is it that there is no God?
You're asking me, how is it there is no God?
Yeah, your position is the negation of the God world. There's only two
My
worldviews that we're.
position, my position, Darth, and that's the reason I tried to give the context of the word atheism as opposed to, like, let's say atheism, right? Like, as opposed to the concept that there is a God that created everything and has nothing to do with humans or interacts with them,
Yeah,
as opposed to
you're wasting
dude,
my
I'm trying to.
time.
What?
No,
Why
I'm
is it a waste
stopping
of?
you.
So
No,
10
because what you're
seconds is a
saying
waste of
is
your time?
what you're saying is gobbledygook. Listen to me very carefully. I just asked you a very simple question and you are evading it. That's why I interrupted you. Now, your position is there is no God. Now, I'd like to know, how did you determine
I'm
there is no God?
agnostic about a deist God, but I am atheist
Okay,
about
okay,
towards your Christian God,
okay. All
Hindu
right. This is
gods,
more. Okay, this is
towards
more. Listen, how old are you,
Muslim
sir?
God. Do
How
you
old are you?
understand the difference that I'm trying to
Yeah,
make, Darth,
listen.
so that we can
Okay,
perceive?
I
I,
understand. I have been dealing with atheists for 10 to
I'm
12
asking
years.
you, do you
Okay,
understand my
I'm
position?
responding. Yeah, I understand your position and I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you
Okay.
even understand your position as well as I do. So I'm going to try to clarify it for you. Okay, what you are giving me are the typical atheist cliches. Now it's very simple. Either you have a positive belief that there is a supreme being, a creator, or you do not. Okay? Now, do you call yourself an atheist?
I'm atheist against
Okay? If
theist
you answer a
beliefs.
question I didn't ask you, I'm going to kick you off the stage momentarily. Now, from now on, if I ask you a direct question, give me an answer to the question, not something I didn't ask. Okay? Do you call yourself an atheist?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there a single word in the entire English speaking world which designates the denial of God?
There are two.
Sir, is there a single word which designates the denial of the existence of God?
Yes.
What is it?
There are two.
What is it?
Atheism, agnosticism.
No, agnosticism is the claim to suspend
May
judgment.
so
Okay, you don't. All right,
may
listen to me.
yes, but
In
may I,
all,
dude?
listen. In
Can you
all
not let
due respect,
anybody else speak, Darth?
no, I'm correcting you because I don't want you to waste my time or the audience time. You do not
Okay,
know
dude.
what you are talking about at this juncture. Okay, agnosticism is not a single word which, in terms of how it represents itself, is overtly denying the existence of God. My question to you was, is there a single word in the English language which is designated to indicate the denial of God? There's only one word in the English language. The word agnosticism is not designated in the English language to deny the existence of God. Are we clear?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good. So, is there one single word in the English language which designates the denial of God?
Yes, atheism.
No, there is no such word as a deism.
Why not?
Okay, you know what? You know what?
So
Hold
I
on.
have a website right
Hold,
here that
stop.
does say, I do have a website that
Oh,
says
really? Send me the
atheism.
link right now. Send me a DM with the link. Atheism. Send that to me.
Are you going to post it for everybody so that you can see,
I want
so
you to
that they
send it
know
to me.
that
I'm gonna look. I want you to send me the link right now so I can look it up. I'm waiting.
encyclo.co.uk. I
No, I
sent it
want
to
you to
you.
send me the
I
DM with the
did send
link.
it. I did send it to you.
No, it's not. I'm not. I'm not getting it in a DM.
That doesn't mean I didn't send it to you.
You know what? I'm gonna kick your dumb ass off the
Dude,
stage.
dude, I'm not lying to you, Darth. I sent
Okay.
it to you in the
Okay.
back
You know
chat,
what?
dude.
Dude. I'm not giving you any more benefit of doubt. Okay. Stop jerking me around. Are you gonna send me the link in a DM or not?
I promise I'll do it again. I'll do it a
Okay.
second
You
time,
know,
Darth. Don't kick
you,
me. I'm not lying to you.
there's no message in my DMs from you.
I'm sending it a second time, dude. Maybe the app is trying to catch up. Don't think that I'm lying.
Try sending it to me right now
Okay,
and
I'll
see
All
if
send
I
it to
can.
you
okay, all
too.
right. I just got it. All right, let me look this up. Yeah, atheism. Max Muller coined the term, which means the rejection of devas or gods of ancient India. Okay, that is not.
Does it say more, Darth? Does it
No,
say
sir.
more?
No, sir. It's
Yes,
dealing
it
with the
does.
gods. Listen to me. It is dealing with the gods of
Okay,
India.
so
Okay,
what
now.
else does it say, Darth? Does it
Okay.
say similar to atheism?
That's local atheism, man. That's not
What
universal
else does
Hey,
it say?
hey,
atheism.
It
listen
says
to me.
similar to
Listen to me
atheism of
carefully.
one God.
Listen, dude. Are you gonna fucking continue to bicker with me like you're a little 14-year-old child, or do I have to kick you off the stage?
Who's the
I'm
one
trying to
swearing at
explain
the
to
other
you.
person
Okay,
right
you know
now,
what?
Darth?
You're gone. Get the hell out of here. You're a piece of garbage. A grown man and you're bickering like a 14-year-old at the cafeteria table. Get the hell out of here. Okay. You see, this is what we have to deal with, and then people listen to recordings of Darth Dawkins getting agitated. Well, here's why I get agitated: is because I deal with imbecile adults who sit there and bicker like 14-year-olds. Okay, and you were spot on, Mr. Tonlock, when with the atheism is just simply an explication of local atheism. Okay,
Yeah, pointing to gods in
atheism.
India. Are you serious?
Yeah. See, again. These people prove my point. We just get these lying diversionary atheists. It's amazing. Okay, he calls himself an atheist, but then he doesn't want to admit that there's only one word in the English language which designates the denial of God. It's atheism. So they want to call themselves atheists, but then they want to go, "Oh, I'm agnostic." What a bunch of fools these people are. It's painful talking with these individuals. And people wonder why I get agitated. I don't have any patience for this uh, pattern of deception. You don't have to say things that I agree with, but what you do have to do is not be deceptive. Don't bicker. Okay? I mean, Tomlock, wasn't it clear to you this guy was just bickering with me?
Yeah, it was obvious, man. It was obvious he was finding something to argue about because he
Yeah,
clearly didn't want to defend fundamental universal atheism. He didn't want to do it.
yeah,
He
yeah.
knew it.
See, what the atheists do not want to do, right? And some of them do it more obvious, some, less obvious. They do not want to countenance a very careful, definitional explanation of the God world versus the not God world, right? Because then what this does is it removes them from the sphere of their clicheism. Their cliches don't work anymore, right? They don't want to talk about God in terms of being a worldview, God or not God, the God world, the not God world. Because what this type of approach brings precision and accuracy and clarification to the subject matter. And they don't want to do that. So this is why they play these little games. Right? Atheism. Yeah, he probably what he probably did was he he momentarily thought up the word atheism and then he looked it up to see if it was used somewhere on the interweb. Right? And you'll notice that it didn't even match what he claimed. Atheism, from the source that he can, is not a universal declaration that there is no God. It's just atheism, as it was coined by that from that website by that Maxwell guy or whatever his name is, Muller, was simply the rejection of a plethora of Hindu gods. Okay. This is local atheism. It's not global atheism. See, you notice how they don't want precision brought to the table on the subject matter. Okay, if we have any truthful, non-double talking, non-bickering atheists, you want to come up and explain atheism, be my guest. But if you're going to bicker, you won't last long up here. See, as usual, we can't seem to get any mature-minded, intelligent unbelievers to come up and discuss the issue. Okay? We either get these people who are idiots or people who are just purposely obtuse. They're purposely trying to bicker. Then they wonder why I interrupt. Do you think I'm interrupted just because I'm trying to be an a-hole? No, I'm not. If you're just going to be rambling and not really speaking what is germane to what we're talking about, I'm going to interrupt you and stop you and say you're wasting my time. You know, I see these rabbit trail community college lectures all the time. It's a well-worn tactic among unbelievers. Well, I guess we don't have any atheists who really have a spine. We don't have atheists who really believe what they say they believe.
They're going to keep giving us the runaround because they know they can't defend their atheism. They know this. It's really that
Well,
simple.
this is their mo when they deal with most people. Their strategy is just to bicker, 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 bicker. Guy comes on here. Oh, I don't believe in God, just like I don't believe in an orbiting teapot around Jupiter. Yeah, this is a category error. You're imitating Bertrand Russell, who made a blunder there. Okay, I mean, talking about an orbiting teapot around Jupiter vis-a-vis Bertrand Russell, it's about as dumb as saying, "Oh, I don't believe in God." The same reason why I don't believe in leprechauns or unicorns or Santa Claus. I mean, really, really dumb. I mean, isn't this amazing? How even see Bertrand Russell was an atheist, but even as a brilliant a brilliant philosopher that he was, even he could not come up with a tour de force rationale why there's no God. So because he didn't have a tour de force knockdown refutation of the existence of God, he comes up with something that's a little bit more, how shall I put it, sophisticated sounding, a teapot orbiting Jupiter. Okay, but it's not an argument for atheism. It's just a stipulation that you're claiming you're unconvinced, but that doesn't support atheism. Extraordinary.
Logically,
The point.
How are you, dude?
When they're completely outclassed and cornered by their own statements, then they just resort to more atheist cliches and slogans, and then they claim they answered the question when they didn't. This is what is so embarrassing about atheists. Come on up, Vant. Vant, excuse me. Go ahead, Vant.
Hey, Darth. How you doing? Redefine. How's everyone tonight? Good?
How are you, dude?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I want to ask you something, Darth. I don't know if you can educate me. I remember once hearing you talk about brute facts. Are there different types of facts, and what's the difference between them? I mean, since facts are the grounding. I mean, we need to know if facts
Oh,
are
I'm sorry.
grounded, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. My microphone was muted. Okay.
No, no problem, no problem.
I'm using the word brute fact in the sense that a fact will either be categorized or conceptualized as being creaturely, that it derives and depends upon the self-contained eternal mind of God. That's the ultimate reason why the fact in question exists. Or a fact will be invoked without a reason as to why it exists, either externally or internally. And therefore, the fact is stated simply it just is. It has no explanation externally or internally as to why it exists. Right?
Okay,
In other
so
words,
yeah,
the fact in question.
this is like the dichotomy question, ultimately, isn't it? You're either it's two worldviews, right?
Well, let me just finish. When it
Go
comes
ahead.
to brute facts, Cornelius Van Til, the Christian theologian and apologist, said that brute facts are mute facts. They're ultimately unidentifiable and indefensible because they are not categorized as being self-contained or unconditionally non-dependent and derivative, nor are they stipulated to exist contingently in virtue of X. Okay, there's only two kinds of facts from a Christian worldview. There are created facts or not. And if they're not, they're brute facts, which means the fact will be invoked and is shrouded in ultimate mystery. As opposed to the fact is invoked but is not shrouded in ultimate mystery, but ultimately derives and depends upon God. So there might be a certain state of affairs, let's say scientifically or historically, that I come across that baffles me, but it's not shrouded in ultimate mystery because God is ultimately behind all facts in terms of this is his creation and this is a part of his plan. So I might find certain things mysterious that I have difficulty understanding, let's say delving into like quantum mechanics, but ultimately it's not shrouded in mystery in that however things operate at a quantum or a subquantum level is that they derive from the plan of God in terms of redemptive history. Okay, so a brute fact is something that is not to be reckoned as a created fact.
Yeah, and an example of a brute fact, would it be something like the laws of logic or something else?
Anything that is stipulated to exist but is not said to either explicitly or implicitly derived and depending upon the mind and plan of God. It doesn't matter what the fact in question is. If the fact is invoked to be the case, okay, X is the case, but X is not consciously attributed to the mind and plan of God, then by default, then it will be reckoned as a brute fact. But if it is a brute fact, then it is meaningless because it has no final context to what it is. Not
So
it's
in a Christian
yeah.
worldview, a brute fact cannot actually exist.
There are no brute facts in the Christian world
Correct. Got it.
because all facts are what they are because they start in the mind of God. So, for example, it's not simply what God created in the beginning. So, for example, a ballpoint pen on my desk is not a brute fact. The ballpoint pen is just simply stuff that God made in the beginning of creation, and man, whom he created through man's ingenuity that God gave him, he reformulated stuff God made into a ballpoint pen. So the ballpoint pen is a created fact, even though it's been reformulated into a tool by man. So in the Christian worldview, there are no brute facts.
I got it. Yeah,
In
good
the
explanation.
in the non-believers world, everything ultimately becomes a brute fact. It doesn't matter that you say, well, this depends upon this, right? Well, where'd you get the dependency? In order to say that there's a dependency or a contingency, then you have to have some level of unification among the diversity of things. Well, what imposes that unity? In the Christian worldview, it is the mind and the plan of God that not only institutes each and every one of the particularity in the world, but God himself imposes various levels of unity and categoryness and universals, right?
I,
But when people decide that they don't need God, say, okay, fine, then explain to me how your world is coherent without God. You know, I attempted to ask this of atheist philosopher Graham Uppy. He would have nothing of it. He wanted to say
mm,
that naturalism is perfectly coherent without God, that we can account for the natural world, but we cannot account for God, and that was the basis of his atheism. And so my retort to him was, well, how is naturalism even coherent? Okay, because if you're going to say that it's coherent, you know, sans God, without reference to God, then what is it that imposes the actuality of unity? I said, where do you get unity from in your world of particularity? And you know what he said? He goes, oh, I can see books on myself. This is what he said. This is Graham Oppy, the great atheist author.
mm, yeah. And another question I get from atheists, Darth, is um, if God is the only one that's eternal, meaning he has no beginning and no end, and everything else that's created has a beginning and an end, then can you explain that people will live forever in 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 paradise or in heaven in the hereafter without dying? Yeah.
Well,
Can you? Is there a discrepancy there?
no, dying pertains to the cessation of biological functioning. Okay. Now, if somebody becomes a believer in Jesus Christ, we will die unless we're raptured, and we will receive a glorified body, which will from then on out will never itself cease to be. Okay. So I don't understand what the discrepancy is.
Yeah. So if God is the only one that has no end, then how can then people also have no
Okay.
end?
So, um, when we talk about eternal, there are different ways of nuancing it. Okay. So God is the only thing that is eternal in the sense that he is without beginning and without end. People will continue to live on into eternity, but they are not, in fact, eternal in the sense that they are without beginning. Okay,
Is in
it
eternity and
it
from eternity.
yeah. It's very similar to the issue of something being reckoned to be infinite versus a potential infinite. All right. So a potential infinite means it's something that continues without ceasing, but it is not infinite in the sense that it doesn't have a starting point. Okay. So do you understand the difference between an actual infinite and a potential infinite?
Yeah, if I understood correctly, the actual infinite has no beginning and no end, but the
Yeah,
potential infinite has a beginning but doesn't
right.
end.
But it continues. Like for example, you could if you were to live forever, okay, from the time you began, you counting, you could theoretically, conceptually, keep on counting without end. That would be a potential infinite. It just goes on and on and on and on. Okay, so when the Bible talks about the word eternal, we always have to make sure in which context are we referring it to. Okay, now
Yeah,
it could be the case that angels, demons, humans, we could potentially have an end if God were to so choose. But God himself cannot ontologically have an end. We will not have, so to speak, an end because God wills it, right? So we will not have God being without end is not in the same nuance as us being without end, okay? God is without beginning and end as an ontological status, okay? That's not subject to his will. But our existing in perpetuity without end is subject to his will. Go ahead, Caleb. What would you like to say?
Oh, I guess I would take your bait on this question.
Sure. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I guess my question is to a degree, as a as an atheist, I think that you and I actually believe the same thing, except atheism carries it to its logical conclusion.
What does
Um,
that mean we believe the same thing? What is it that we believe the same thing?
Are
well,
you going to do
so
the one less God than you, one more God than you, or that type of thing?
my question is the argument for a God worldview or a
Caleb, can you
Christian
answer my
worldview?
question? Can you answer my question, please?
Certainly.
You said we believe the same thing. What thing do we both believe?
We both believe that all the gods that have existed before Christianity are falsities.
There it is. The
My
one you take it one God further. There it is.
Yeah. Let's get down to brass tacks. You're an atheist. And atheism is defined in the reference literature is that there are no gods. Okay. Now, there are a few reference sources, few of them, that have an addendum. They say it's a lack of belief, but this is an unfortunate addendum because it's non-informative. Okay, it's ambiguous. Okay, now an atheist is somebody, and I'll quote Graham Oppy, the famous atheist philosopher and author. Atheism is the position there are no gods. Okay, now either you're going to take the position that there's at least one God, a creator God, right? Or you'll take the position that there are no gods, or no God, specifically no God. Or you can claim that you suspend judgment for both of those propositions. Okay? So are you using the word atheist in its normal definition?
I am.
Good. So God does not exist because
God does not exist because humans have had gods since the beginning of humanity. The
that's a non
illogical
sequitur.
conclusion is that if all those gods are false, the gods that we currently believe in are also false.
No, that's a non sequitur. That is very pathetic reasoning. Okay, in all due respect, that's called a genetic fallacy, right? The fact that people in the past have had faulty reasoning for believing in one or more gods, it doesn't follow that what is ultimate, that is the source, the ground of all being, is not a mind. That's a non sequitur. Okay? The fact that people's thinking in the past is faulty, it doesn't follow from that that what is universal to everything is not a mind. Okay? Do you understand that the stipulation of God or not God is a statement of universality?
I understand that that statement is generally how this thought tree works. My
Okay, do
question,
you understand
my
that when
question,
we're talking, let me finish so we're on the same page. When we talk about God or not God, the God world, the not God world, we are talking about a statement of universality. And here's what I mean. In the God world, we have God is that which is self contained, non derivative, unconditionally non dependent, eternal, and is the source of everything that begins to exist. Everything that is not itself, okay, derives from God. Now, that is a stipulation of universality. So, are we clear on that definition that God is a statement of universality? I'm not asking you to accept that God exists at this juncture. I'm just saying, do you understand that the invocation of God as the eternal creator and sustainer of all things that are not himself is a statement of universality?
it is, yes, it is a statement of
Good.
universality in a
Now,
God-based world.
yeah, and a not God world is also a stipulation of universality. All right, I have to step away. Please take over redefining Tom on. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so God does not exist because your answer was that because there have been God concepts in the past and those have been falsified. But that doesn't follow that because people believe certain things in the past that there is no God. So do you have another answer?
Yeah, we got a bunch of gods that were made up. Let's say every last single one of them, at least conceptually speaking, from man's point of view, were made up. That still wouldn't mean that there's no gods at all. Even if it turned out false that the ones that they conceptually constructed weren't true, it wouldn't mean that there were no gods, period. So you need
I know
something other than saying that man made
you
it up in the past.
you are correct. You are. I am willing to give you that too. There is the possibility of that. But I guess my question is, are we arguing for a God, the existence of God, or a Christian viewpoint of the existence of God? Because if
We're
you,
not discussing the certain attributes. Your position that there is no God. And so
yes,
we're asking you for a logical or a rational explanation of how you came to that conclusion. In the same way that you would ask a Christian, how is it that there is a God? Well, it's a fair question. Okay, so we're asking you that same fair question. How is it that there is no God? And so far, your first answer was fallacious. So we're asking you again.
so my answer would be is that my explanation for my answer would be simply that while humans have worshipped and thought of gods from their inception,
We've
and
already addressed
if
this.
we accept the concept of evidence of God being, perhaps written records or stories of that God's existence, aka the Bible, or
I've already,
the
excuse me, sir. I've already addressed this, and I've already explained to you why that's a fallacious line of reasoning. So you're just doubling down on the same fallacious line of reasoning.
well, it's a fallacious line of reason. I mean, I could make a valid argument for Thor, certainly, under the same
Well, that would
pretext
be a
that one
categorical
would
error.
make.
That would be a category error.
Are you
And that would also
suggesting?
falsify your worldview because you would be positing something that you don't believe. That means that what you do believe is insufficient.
Are you
Take Thor.
suggesting that because there are certain people that constructed gods, that there's a good chance there are none? Is that your point?
My yes, that would be my point. Is if you create an experiment that fails a million times and it failed, what is the chances that the success rate of that would be 1,000,001? So if the argument would be that we have worshipped millions of gods through the course of history, some of
Okay,
which have their own
hold on.
books, some of which
You're
have
just
people
repeating.
who
No.
testify for
Hold
them.
on a minute, Caleb. You're just repeating the same thing now for the third time. It doesn't follow that because people were confused about God or certain attributes of God or this and that. It doesn't follow from that there is no God. So it's a fallacious line of reason. I've already explained that. And it hasn't been millions of gods. And not all gods are in the same category as ultimate and creator. And if you're appealing to some sort of consensus, you would refute yourself, because what follows from millions of God concepts is that there is some God. That would be the logical conclusion that follows from that. It wouldn't be, oh, there's been these God concepts of millions of gods all throughout history, therefore no God exists. What? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, and to
What would
add to that,
follow from that
redefine.
is that there
Can
is
I
a
add to
God
that?
and people are confused about it. That's what would follow from that. But again, for
Yeah,
the third time, you're just saying the same thing. You're rephrasing it in different ways, and
yeah,
it's a fallacious line of reasoning.
that's
So
right.
we're asking you for something else.
And redefine. One point to add to that is Caleb is trying to say that if something over 1 million attempts cannot be proven, then to go to 1,000,001 is
Well, I
pointless.
don't know
Whereas
where.
atheists
Yeah, I
believe,
don't know where
no,
that.
this is one moment. The point I'm getting to is that atheists themselves believe that the whole emergence of the universe has come about in its improbability due to an infinite amount of time and an infinite amount of attempts. Yeah, so they say with all the atoms in the universe, they came together and formed order in the universe. That can come about if you have infinite time and infinite attempts.
So he
So
says
Caleb's
his.
argument was
Well, I
self-defeating.
could also say that it's just a circular argument, because I say, how is it there's no evidence of God? And he says, well, there's no evidence of God because there's no evidence of God. What's
True.
that? What's that even mean? I'm asking how we determine that.
Yeah.
So saying that there's no evidence of God, okay, how did you determine that? But we'll let Caleb try a different line of reasoning. I've responded to your assertion 3 times. You've presented it 3 different ways. I've given you 3 different responses.
So
Go
okay,
ahead.
let's take a slightly different approach to this then. What is the evidence of a Christian worldview
I'm
comparatively to a Muslim
I'm
worldview
That's
or
not the
a
happy.
question,
I'm
Mormon
Caleb.
happy
worldview
to answer that
or a
question.
Judaist worldview?
I'm happy to answer that question. Okay, but right now I asked you a question and you haven't answered. And the question that we've asked you is, how is it that there is no God? So now you're just pivoting.
I would
I don't
actually
mind
no,
answering.
I
I don't mind
honestly
answering that question.
I would
Okay, but
like
if
you
you
to happily answer my question if you are so happy to answer it.
That can be
yeah,
answered
so
later, Caleb.
if you were to ask me a question and my answer was blah, 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 would you accept that, or would you say no? That's not a sufficient answer. It's a response, but it's not an answer. Would you accept that as an answer?
Well, I mean, are you going to answer my question with blah 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 blah, or
So
I'm asking
Caleb,
this
now you've dodged again. Look,
absolute.
you're
I asked
dodging.
you a simple
Bait and switch.
question. Hold on,
Please,
hold on.
I am actually
Caleb,
asking this out
I'm
of.
gonna mute you. Look, I've asked you a simple question, and I'm waiting for you to respond. I asked you, how is it that there is no God? And I'm waiting for your response. So, how is it there is no God?
I asked you an also a simple question, yet you seem to dodge that one too.
Caleb,
Yeah,
you asked the question
I don't
first.
mind answering your question.
And
I've made that clear.
please
But
do
right
not
now you're
do
dodging
not
and you're pivoting. So
do not.
I will tell you, Caleb, let me show you how to answer a simple question. I know that there
Perfect.
is a
That's what I
God
would love to hear.
because God has revealed himself. It has been revealed all throughout human history. We have a rich history of the revelation of God. Okay? That's how. So now it's your turn. God does not exist because how is it there is no God? Go ahead.
So if God, if the proof of God is that He has revealed Himself,
Caleb,
and I'm assuming
You see, we're not gonna
I
do
I am
did
answering
this.
your
say
question.
We're
I
not
am
I did
I am
we're
answering
not
your
gonna do this.
question.
It's
Well,
obvious,
he's
Caleb. It's obvious
obfuscating
you.
and prevaricating.
It's
Yeah,
obvious,
yeah,
Caleb. It's
Caleb.
obvious you
I
couldn't
I
answer the
answered your
question.
question. I answered your question in good faith. Okay, I did, and now you're moving on to question number 2. But I'm still waiting for you to answer question number 1. I don't mind answering question number 2 or 3 or 4. That's fine. But I'm waiting for question number 1 from you. So go ahead and try that
I
again.
I I I was trying to, if you may allow me to
Yeah, my
walk
position
through
on
some of my
God,
reasoning
my
for a
my
moment.
response to the revelation of God, my position has no bearing on how you need to answer that. The Christian God, any of these things that you're trying to pivot toward have no bearing on how you need to answer for your worldview. I could be a rock with a note to it, and that note says, "How is it there is no God?" Okay, so go ahead.
Fair enough. God has never revealed himself to me.
So it doesn't follow that because God has not revealed himself to you, that there is no God. Okay, so that's not an answer either. That's just another response. It's actually a cliche. So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm now please. I actually
And you couldn't defend that either. You
I
can't
would like
defend
to
that, Caleb. You can't.
tease this
You
out,
can't
please.
even. Okay,
I'm
go ahead.
trying
You
to have
you can't even
a
defend the
discussion with you.
Well,
statement.
how do you
You
know
can't
that
even
God has
defend.
not revealed himself to you?
Yeah,
Do you know
exactly.
that?
You can't even defend that. Say okay. Go ahead, Caleb.
Will I be allowed to talk?
Well, if you stick to the question that you're supposed to be answering and stop pivoting, go ahead.
Sure, certainly. And please, I do not please do not mistake me trying to obfuscate this conversation. I am simply trying to walk through a handful of points that we can both agree and
Yeah, it
disagree
just
on.
seems like you're tap
And
dancing, but go ahead.
well, all right. So to the point that you claim that God has revealed Himself to you.
Yeah,
I
does
know
my
people.
position, see, you don't want me to interrupt you, but then you go on to, I told you I could be a rock with a note tied to it. Okay.
I was trying to
My
answer that question.
position, yeah, my position has no bearing on how you answer that.
Well, it does in the regards to the fact
My
that
position
you
it has a
can I
bearing on
can I
how
answer
there is
your
no God.
question?
I'll try. Go ahead.
You had said that God had revealed Himself to you. I have people in my life who have described when God has revealed Himself to them as people. That is not an experience that I have ever had, nor have I ever had an experience in my own life that I could definitively say was a revelation that was being presented to me. Now, that,
Caleb.
like I said, I'm not. That's simply what I'm saying.
Okay, it doesn't follow that because all of the tribes in the Amazon jungle have not revealed themselves to you, that they don't exist. I've never revealed myself to you before this conversation. Did I just poof magically into existence? Okay. Are all your friends liars now too? That's another line of reasoning that just doesn't work. So go ahead and try again.
Well, it depends upon the point of argument. If the point of argument is simply that Christianity is the defining characteristic of a religion.
Well, we're not talking about, again, I've already said this to you. We're not talking about the specifics of this God or the certain attributes of this God being the Christian doctrine and such. Okay? It's the